Welcome to Meet the Candidate with your host, Sulani Madsen. Meet the Candidate is your opportunity to see local candidates and hear about the experiences that have shaped their lives. Meet the Candidate is a nonpartisan community project brought to you by your friends at the Ponderosa Republican Women's Club, North by Northwest Digital, We Believe, We Vote, and the McGarry Law Office, the landlord's attorney. Now, here's Sulani.
Okay, well, welcome to this edition of Meet the Candidate. My guest is Jocelyn Cook, who is a candidate for Spokane Superior Court Judge, Position 6.
Hello.
Nice to have you here, Jocelyn.
Thank you for having me.
Well, this is an opportunity to get acquainted. It's particularly difficult with judicial candidates, sometimes people feel, and but just to get acquainted with who you are, and just starting with, where did you grow up?
I started in Maryland, and I lived there till I was 8. We moved to California against my will when I was 8.
I'm not sure 8-year-olds get to decide that.
I had quite a will.
Oh.
And I did not want to move. I moved back to William and Mary, Williamsburg, Virginia, for college. And then I went back to California briefly, and then here. So I choose the East Coast, but the truth is I probably spent even time in California and on the East Coast.
Okay, well, I love the area around Williamsburg, and William and Mary is a beautiful campus.
It is. It's some places just feel like home.
I can understand why that would have drawn you back. So what drew you to Spokane?
I ended up, after college, temping at a little place in Southern California, trying to figure out what to do after college. And there was a gentleman at the college that said there was a law school that had a program called the Center for Children's Rights. Unfortunately, it was 2 blocks from my old home functionally, and so it was still in Southern California. But I was interested in advocacy for children, so I stayed. And then I met my husband while I was waiting tables. And he decided, finally, that he didn't want to raise children in California. And he picked Spokane on a road trip in 2005 in the middle of the winter.
Well, that says a lot for how lovely Spokane can be in the middle of the winter.
Yeah. So we came up here with nothing and built a life here.
Oh, is he also an attorney?
No, he is a teacher for Spokane Public Schools. He's a special education teacher.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, that's a skill and a craft that he could practice anywhere.
Well, he actually went to school here. So when we moved here, we literally came with no jobs. My husband was dispatching before we got here for AAA and the police in Southern California. And when we moved up here, he worked a couple different jobs before he decided to go back to school. So he actually went to SEC, and then he went to Eastern, and then he got his special education degree and his bachelor's degree here. And then he's been teaching at what used to be called Bancroft Schools, Eagle Peak, for the last 8 years. So this place kind of built us.
Okay, so you've built your life here, and it's built up both of you. Well, how has it built up you? What's the effect been for you?
I think this place has given us our direction. I think that you go through law school and you go through life idealizing what you want to do and how you want to help people. And I really wanted to help people tangibly, one at a time. At first, it was children. And I did all my volunteer time during law school working with children who have special needs that maybe weren't getting free, appropriate public education. Maybe they weren't benefiting from their educational placement. And when we moved up here, there was only one person that did that, so I had to just start cold calling people to figure out what I could do. And I ended up working for this woman named Cece Glenn, and she did appellate work, and she did Social Security disability appeals. And I learned in law school that I really love to read about the law, and then I learned from Cece how much I love to read about it and write about it. And I spent 2 years with her just writing briefs. And when you write briefs, you get to it's ideal because it's an intellectual exercise in what happened, that you can argue something wrong, and it gives you a license to be creative and thoughtful and write a brief and try to change something. But it's also safe because whatever's happened has already happened. So I got to learn a lot about the Superior Court process. And then I applied for the Public Defender's Office after that, and I got to be an advocate. So I think all of those things are not what I expected, but they're exactly what I needed. And I think Spokane did that for my husband, too. I think if you'd met us in California, we never would have thought that we would be these adults. But now that we are these adults, I don't think that we would choose something different for ourselves.
That's a wonderful thing to have found, to have found yourself. So one of the things that I like to ask people about is things that a first job, maybe it was waiting tables, but even first jobs as children. When you first made that connection between money and labor and something that I can do.
Well, I used to hoard my lunch money, and I would get lunch money, and then I would work in the lunch line. So I worked in the lunch line where they give you a free lunch. That was actually my first job. And then I stored up my lunch money so I could go buy things for myself.
You were determined to move back to Maryland.
I was all done with this place. And then after that, my first job, I was 15. And I worked there one day. And it was at Baskin and Robbins. And I couldn't really relate to the art of making an ice cream scoop. I didn't have a passion for ice cream scooping. Apparently there is an art to it. And so I shortly got a job working at a gym after that, and I got to work in their child care center. And I did that, I think, for a couple years until I started waitressing.
So I would hazard from that what you learned from those work experiences, that you work much better when it's something you're passionate about.
It's helpful. It absolutely is. And weirdly, I like waitressing. So I thought that was...
It's people, but yeah, waitressing is a little different than actually dishing up.
Yeah, you get an opportunity to meet everyone. I've worked at bars, I've worked at nightclubs, I've worked at fine dining establishments, I've worked at family restaurants, I've worked at coffee shops in between. It was good for me, and it was a fun way to figure out who you are, like with an entire world of people.
It's a classic way to be working your way through school and to be working your way through those early years. So back into the law, is there a you mentioned the lawyer who helped give you a spot where you could write safely. Is there a judge, a lawyer, or a judge that you admire for the effect they've had or the way they have handled themselves in the law?
I think there are different things I like from different judges. I really liked the way Judge O'Connor treated everyone in her courtroom. I think that she was firm with everyone. She expected everyone to be prepared. There was never an expectation that one side was better than the other or one side had more merit than the other. She just expected work ethic and a base of knowledge with regard to the rules, and she expected everyone to comply with that. And I liked that. I think that everyone came in at their best behavior and the most prepared in order to be able to accommodate her expectations. And I thought that was daunting and impressive. But I think another judge that's really impacted me is Commissioner Ressa. She is a commissioner for the Superior Court judges, and I've watched her in the courtroom come down from the dais, and that's what it feels like sometimes, and meet children at the table and speak to them and explain to them what's happening to them and thank them for whatever work they've done and assure them that she hears their voice. And I think that there's just a grace to her because she can do that in one moment, and then in the next moment she can make a really thoughtful, really articulate decision based on the law that's brave and maybe might not be popular. And she can do that eloquently. So I think she has a combination of attributes that I think are rare.
You know, I know Commissioner Ressa from a board that we both serve on, and that's really interesting to hear a feedback from a professional colleague on how she is in her courtroom, because I don't know her from there, but that's
my nose itches, and I don't know what to do.
You itch it.
Okay, it seems so ridiculous.
That's what people do. So
my eyes are watering. Excuse me.
So I was going to ask you what Superior Court does, but we covered so many other interesting things. I'm just going to ask you that last question. So let people know, why should they vote for Jocelyn Cook for Superior Court Judge, District Position 6?
I've spent over 10 years at the Public Defender's Office. I've spent 2 years doing appellate work. I think I've done research, I've written, I've worked hard with the law, but I've also been able to meet people that are affected by the community in my job. I've met people charged with crimes. I've met families of people charged with crimes. I've worked with parents in crisis. I've met social workers, teachers. I've been to institutions. I've been to hospitals with my clients. And I think I've had an opportunity to really work with this community. And I also have really had an opportunity to find a love for the law. And I think that its neutral application in a non-politicized way is really important for the bench. And I think that I can bring those pieces together. I've not been involved in politics. This is my first time. But I think I can bring those pieces together and be the kind of judge that the bench should have so that we can have consistency from our judges and compassion as well.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jocelyn.
Thank you for your time.
Good luck.
Thanks for watching Meet the Candidate. Spokane Talks Online thanks our community-minded partners at Ponderosa Republican Women's Club, North by Northwest Digital, We Believe, We Vote, and the McGarry Law Office, the landlord's attorney, for helping make Meet the Candidate possible.